Alors, chef, c'est prêt?
Ok. Bonjour tout le monde. Bonjour tout le monde. Hello everyone. J'espère que vous allez bien. Je vais faire une introduction en français. I'll do an intro in English, then resume in English. Je vais vous faire une introduction en français. Je suis désolé, je sais qu'on est à Montréal. Pour être inclusif, je devrais faire les présentations dans les deux langues. En fait, je vais faire cette présentation en anglais parce que notre hôte aujourd'hui, Frank White, on ne voit pas faire. Et en tout cas, notre hôte, Frank White, aujourd'hui est donc américain qui, comme il va interagir avec nous, on va devoir donc, faire cette présentation en anglais. Donc, je répète, cette présentation peut être donnée par la suite en français si vous désirez. Est-ce que tout le monde est à l'aise avec le fait que je fasse en anglais? Yes. Yes. Great. Okay. So, great. It's good to be here with you. Thanks for showing up on a great Friday afternoon. Just came back from space here, and you'll understand why. Maybe some of you have had the chance to see Leah's work and mine. I'll get back to it just later. So, I'd like to introduce the speakers. Frank White is the author of. Oh, I'm sorry. Frank White is the author of the Overview Effect, the fourth edition of that book. The Overview Effect, Space Exploration and Human Evolution. Leah is the photographer who works with us, the crew. So Leah, you will have a chance to introduce yourself right after. And I myself am TitiMcCoy, known in the arts world. And I have done that exhibition right here. So that's what I'm going to talk about right now, real quick. And someone just came in, so I have to do a bit of logistics maybe sometimes. So I dedicate my work, my art's work, to triangulate what we humans perceive as reality and try to have a different perception of it. So what I mean by this is that I have seen reality in a way, and ever since I've started to do arts, and ever since I've started to come into that space, I have really had the chance to have different conversations, and that's what I want to talk to you about today as part of that exhibition, which is called Overview. Again, someone is coming into to Zoom, so I'll have to meet them. Okay, so today is Earth Day. Everyone knows about it? Yeah? Okay, so this single event is celebrated by 190 countries, which pretty much is every country on Earth. Pretty rare, actually. So you're all familiar with the fact that our Earth is burning right now. So we are essentially consuming too many resources for what it can renew. In fact, Canadians themselves consume 4.7 planets per person if we had to sort of make it an average. And that's a lot. That's something to be concerned about, especially since 3.6 billion people are currently suffering from the consequences of that climate change, and this is coming pretty quick at us. I want to be positive today, and I want to be too dramatic, but that was an intro I needed to do because this is the very idea, this is the very reason, why we are currently running that exhibition with Leah. Now, the world itself is on average consuming 1.7 planets, so even if we were living like the average person on Earth, we would still be consuming too much. So now, thanks a bit. It's the tallest guy in the room and he's telling me to just still be consuming too much. I'm actually going to go here. Great. So you may have seen recently a NASA scientist So I'm sorry, the colors are not great. A NASA scientist just tying himself up to a bank to protest for that very reason, for that very cause. So scientists are very worried about that event, and not just scientists, artists like myself and Leah are also pretty concerned. I mentioned Sam as well, who is the creator of the game that you will be able to play right after, considered as an artist as well. So he also is concerned about this curse of events. So do you recognize? It's okay. It's okay. You can listen to me. So, I guess some of you may have recognized Shepard Fairey, Obey, known in the world, industry world as Obey. So more and more artists are starting to create artworks to mainly try to ring bells and have us be more conscious about the fact that the planet is in danger. He has, for example, in 2015 during the COP21 in Paris, exhibited a giant Earth under the Eiffel Tower. So that was a pretty good move, and I personally really found myself drawn to art because you know it's a pretty heavy topic. It's a topic that we really don't like to hear about too much. And art, because it just rings different bells, and because it brings beauty, is a way for us to explore that theme differently. And that's why I found myself drawn, for example, to Banksy. I guess you all know Banksy. So he's done a few artworks really to express what climate change and its consequences were. So really, I told you at the beginning that I really started arts because I wanted to change my perception of things. And so what I want to talk to you about first is the fact that we should cultivate wonder, right? Cultiver l'émerveillement en français. So as a child, and really still as an adult, I was really drawn to Le Petit Prince, the Little Prince. This little man living on his planet, caring about his volcano and his little flower, nothing else. Sort of like I sort of could associate myself with this little character. You know, he was on his planet, and he would travel to other planets. On one of those planets, do you guys recognize him? Yeah, some do. Okay, so he's a pretty angry man who counts stars. In fact, to own them, to own the stars, right? So the little prince would ask, "But why do you want to own the stars?" And he's like, "Yeah, too busy. Just I don't have time to talk about it. I'm counting the stars in order to own them." But then he goes, "Well, why do you want to own the stars?" Because someone else will get it if I don't. So this I don't want to explain that story because it should resonate differently with every one of you guys. But what I got really from Le Petit Prince, the Little Prince, is his ability to ask dumb questions to mature adults. And this, I think, is very much something that we should have more in our world today. So those of you who know me know that I went to the Beaux-Arts Academy, the Fine Arts Academy. And when I went there, actually my teacher was there a while ago. When I went there, I learned to draw. So pretty much like all of you, all of us, I started drawing a face like this. So I would do eyes, nose, mouth, right? Because those are the features that our cortex really identified. Now, when you go there, they tell you, well, you can see things differently, right? You can see shades, so you can see light and shades, so it's another way to perceive it. Another way, and I swear I won't give you a class here, but another way is also angles. So you wanna make sure that all the angles are right. In fact, what this taught me is the way I picture things, the way I see things, is in fact the way I interpret things. I interpret the word in a way because I've been taught to. And drawing really made me and made many artists that I know more childish in a way. So thinking more than child. So I went to do a street art work, and actually Leah was here with me. This is a picture. It's not looking great here because the colors are not great, but well, it's actually here, yeah. So that says in French, you probably don't understand this. In French, it says, "Hey, do you think that adults will stop playing war at some point?" Right? Children play war. When we were children, we would fight with sticks, but it was really a joke, right? Because that's what a war is supposed to be, a joke. But then those guys, so obviously a Palestinian and Israeli, are hugging each other and thinking, well, do you think the adults will stop playing war at some point? And actually, when I was doing it, and this is still a picture from Leah, when I was doing it, I had a lot of interactions with people coming around. And this really, I think, is what art represents to me, right? The fact that I'm able to interact and open up, being open-minded and having people coming and being as open-minded as I am, just to explore new fields. So in fact, art may not make us find better answers. I was actually not looking for it when I started art, but it does make us ask better questions. That's my main takeaway. So when I was a kid, I was that really intense kid. And in fact, many of my friends are super intense like that too. Some of them are in the room. I mean, the ones I'm thinking about, you know, what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of existence? I was that kid, you know, and I'm still am. So that's why I love The Little Prince, because it provided a few answers. By the way, The Little Prince is the second most translated book after the Bible. So it says a lot. So that guy here, as I said, like he was just taking care of his volcano and his little flower, right? So that was his meaning, the meaning of his life. So a few years back, I came across this video that was called Overview. So I don't remember seeing it. It was on Vimeo. For those who remember Vimeo, I feel old already. 8 million views, and that video was one that I still remember to that day. That video was showcasing astronauts, you know, who had been into space, so came back and actually told their story. So this is Frank. Looks very familiar. Frank White is the author of the book who actually gave those visual artists the idea to run that video. And so the long story short here, because Frank is going to talk about it in more length later, is that when astronauts would see the Earth from afar, they would feel more connected to it. Namely because that little pale blue dot, right, was floating into space in the void, and then they would want to care about it more, even more than when they were down here, because you cannot really see the round shape when you're down Earth. So that's really what this documentary was all about, and it got me thinking and asking even more questions than before, right? I'll get back to this video later. Camus, so when he received the Nobel Prize, said that art is a great way to give us feelings, and it was also a way to reach the most humble and universal truth. I think art is very much this, and in fact, you know, I'm not a science guy, but I like to show graphs every now and then. Just going to read this out loud. Embodied cognition. This is what you witness when you see a piece of art that you like. Embodied cognition, sorry, affects each. Sorry. So I'll just read this. Cognition, emotion, and behavior are all embodied and embedded in the brain, body, as well as the environment. They affect each other. But, and this is what I want to get to, emotion is primary, as emotion is a stronger mediator of cognition and behavior. So what does that mean? It means that right now, our emotions are pretty much a pillar of how we interpret the world, and I'll get to that later. I don't think we pay too much attention, enough attention, in fact, to this predominant role of emotion. So that's how, you know, doing the arts actually got me to share that more with you. Now, this is science, so. So before I talk about how I see the planet and how before I dig a little bit more into how I interpreting myself the overview effect, I want to talk to you about what it means to be an artist. So I think and this is very subjective. I think the biggest skill of an artist is the ability to observe and be patient, which is actually very hard for me. For those who know me, I like to run around all the time. But actually, in order to become a better artist, you need to always stay still and observe things as they go. So many would think that drawing, and in fact doing art, well, in this case, drawing looks like this, peaceful face. This comes from Christophe Niemann. Peaceful face, you're just one with your piece of paper. Well, for those of you who go to the gym, right? Like if I see you like this at the gym, I'm gonna think, well, that person may not be working hard enough. So if I see you like this now, I'm going to think, well, there you go. You have something that's going to develop. Pretty much the same thing with art. In order to grow as an artist, you need to essentially get super tired of it. And all artists in this room will definitely resonate. I don't know if you can see it very well. No, you can't. But this piece here, that's next to Dorian, it's called the Verso. So when I finished that piece, I had a lot of paint on my shirt. And so I had Raphael was next to me. Raphael is part of the group. So I passed it on to Raphael, and then there was a huge stain of paint. So I guess you can see it here. I just ruined my painting, so that's the feeling of that moment. But then I had to redo it, and it was better. Another example is this one over here. Fine arts is great because it gives you a lot of mathematics and rules. But then when you screw the rules, like when you screw up the rules, it does not really work. So here you had, for example, my square that was supposed to show me like the face that I wanted to draw. Differently than what it was in the real world. So, too bad you can't see it. It both looks terrible, but yeah, that's the journey of an artist. Now, having said that, there are lots of studies, more and more actually, with the advent of neuroscience, that say that when we experience art, we feel connected to something larger. I definitely resonate with this. In fact, I resonate with this because when I draw, and this is what we artists call the zone. When we draw, we feel like we are really flying. So this astronaut, looking at Earth from a top is a metaphor that really resonates with me. I think being an artist really means looking at oneself in a different way, and in fact looking at the world as well in a different way. So I was talking to you guys about questions and how we see the world differently as an artist. We ask ourselves more questions than we give answers. So the planet is burning essentially. Climate change is going to affect us big time. Is affecting us big time, and will affect us. This question can and is actually being tackled right now through a certain way of thinking. I believe, and this is what I have stated when I had to justify what I was doing in arts. In French, we call that artist statements. No, I can speak French. Statement is artistic. Sorry, I'm reading for it. So I believe that we have reached the point where we have somewhat industrialized art consciousness. What does that mean? So about 300 years ago, we had the first industrial revolution. That's great. In machinery, everything was going super great in the West. So we would essentially have faster, stronger, heavier machines that would enable us to live more freely, more independently, and so on and so forth. The fact that we have had that sort of society over the past 300 years has, in my mind, also affected us. You can definitely see this with data right now and how people use technology, but not just that. It has tended to bring us to think more in a more binary way. So either things are black or white. I want to explain myself on that, and in fact, I want to explain it with that triptych. don't even know if that I can say that in English, but I just made up a new word. So we consider things to be either true or not, right? 97% of scientists believe, actually not say that climate change is a thing and was caused by human beings. Now people will either believe it or not. It's true, it's not true, black, white. That is driving us to further polarization. And in fact, what you see today in society is a consequence of it. We just clash, right? Now the good as well. What's morally good? What's morally bad? Again, like if I want to speak about climate change, now it's not, you're flying on a plane. It's not good, right? Versus I am the good person. I consume coffee in a reusable cups, and you don't, so you're not good. You're not doing well. So again, like, this is very much because of this era of social media. We tend to clash more and more. So I think those two aspects have had great consequences. Like truth, for example, has made science. Goodness has made religions, and in fact, every single civilization has had their great religions. So, of course, I'm not saying that all that is redundant, but what I am saying, and this is what I want you to remember, is that I think we have forgotten to actually consider beauty, right? Beauty is universal. Beauty can be felt by everyone, regardless of who you are, where you were born, what your age is. In fact, I love seeing children coming and seeing my art. They are the greatest critics. Like everyone can relate with beauty. Now, if you look at that image, which is actually this one here, you're essentially all on that picture. So everyone can resonate with the fact like that. And it's not just about space art, it's about every kind of art. You can all resonate with it. The colors that Rafael has done here, and then the flashiness of it. I really resonate with that. The calligraphy and the curves, regardless of whether this is Arabic or not, this is absolutely great. The muse and the declination. Anyway, go far with. And of course, Leah's pictures and her creativity that led her to well, I don't want to see you the show, so you explain that. Now, okay, so we live in a society where there is a lot of knowledge, right? We know a lot. That may be a problem. We may actually know too much. So it's a thing to have all the answers. It's another thing to ask ourselves the right questions. And this is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Why, for example, why do we connect the whole planet, right? It's great, innovation, progress, fantastic, right? Those are things that, I mean, in the past 300 years and during that industrial revolutions, you could not really discuss. It is good, but why really? Why do you want to connect it to one? And it is deeply something that I wanted to address with my art. In fact, think about it. What if we started to see our planet as a fragile ecosystem just floating around in the middle of the cosmic void, right? You're just I am, you're nothing here. But you can believe otherwise. You can believe that Elon Musk, for example, has his own ideas, but we are this tiny little dot in the universe, and I prove that with this. Does anyone know about it? Sorry, you should not read. It just looks like a. All right, this is la Nikea. It means paradis incommensurable in Hawaiian, I think. So, yeah, well, someone will translate that. Anyway, so those are 100,000 galaxies put together, and this red dot here is ours. Just to give you a perspective, right? So the Milky Way is right here, and just as a reference, there are 100 billion galaxies in the whole universe, visible universe. So until the Planck wall, which is 13.7 billion light years away. Sorry. Well, that was supposed to be a set of neurons and galaxies, so they look very, very similar. And my point with this picture was that artists would see neurons and a set of galaxies just the same way and be able to interpret it. So that's what I wanted to share here. I'll get back to that. Now, witnessing beauty without ideology or bias is maybe what will unite us at last and may allow us to foster new conversations to, in fact, tackle climate change. Today is Earth Day. We need new sets of conversations. I love the fact that more and more people are, being engaged in that field. I encourage those of you who are artists or want to become artists to maybe consider it, to maybe consider bringing emotions, because emotions resonate more with us into play, just like I'm doing right now, just like Leah is doing right now, just like Frank has done with several artists that he has mentored. And so that's perhaps the role of the artist. That's in fact how I would say it. So I'll conclude with a few pictures of murals that were done for, painted for sea walls, which is a huge, massive planetary exhibition that Obey also attended. So this is a woman in Mexico. Hopefully we can see what she wants. So yeah, this one is from Lauren Weber in Vietnam. This one is from Aaron Glasson in Hawaii. Charlie Johnson in Canada, in Manitoba, actually. Oh, wow. Is I'm familiar with this one? Inti, La Sed de Oro nos dejará sin agua. So the thirst of gold will leave us without water. It's on Saint Laurent, so you can miss it. Carl Jung, I'm a big fan. Now, having said all that, you now understand why I got to enjoy and really want to tackle the overview effect as a theme, because, well, the overview effect, and I'll skip this slide to put the one in English, is so a cognitive change of consciousness reported by some astronauts and cosmonauts. Cosmonauts are Russians. I don't want to say Russian astronauts because astronauts are Americans. Cosmonauts are Russians, but you get the point. During the space flight, after observing our planet from the universe, they feel an obligation and responsibility to take care of that fragile blue dot forever. Now, I met Frank a few weeks ago. Too bad you can't really see him. That's his dog. Frank, I didn't tell you. I took a screenshot that day. So Frank had actually coined that theory, and he has coined it in the late 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And ever since, it is not just a book and a video. It is more than that. Frank has gathered a lot of scientists, artists, business people, and so on and so forth, to actually expand that theory and have everyone relate to it. So he has really had that leadership that in fact led him to be with us today, and we have the great privilege to be with him. Frank wants to support artists more. He believes, and I thank you for that, Frank, that artists have a big role to play in that field. And so that's how we came to talk. Actually, like dogs, Frank. I just wanted to tell you that I like dogs, and I took a picture of it. So what are we?
My definition of it is what happens to you, to a person, emotionally, how they perceive things or the world after being in space.
I remember feeling this connection to it like I never really had, like down here in the middle of it. I tried to describe it to my son, who was 7 when I flew the first time. And the best way that I could think to do that, just the kind of the visual of it, was to say to him, imagine you're looking at the brightest light bulb you've ever seen. And you splatter it with all the colors that you know Earth to be, and you turn it on, and it's like you almost can't look at it because it's just so stunning, so glowing and bright and vibrant. And that's what looking at Earth was like. It was like this bright light bulb of earthly colors, and it always glowed.
My first reaction was, this is too beautiful for people to look at. And we're not meant to see this. It's like a secret. I actually turned my head. And then I realized that that was probably not the right thing to do, because I was here in space and I should continue to look at the planet. So I looked back.
Sorry. Okay. No. I just screwed up. Okay, so I think you put the pictures a couple of slides earlier. It's fine. No worry, no worry. So this, in fact, is what I wanted to communicate with you today. If you had to bring one message back home, is use arts more to tackle climate change and to address this issue and try to see beauty as well as truth and goodness. And I want you to also to I want to talk with you guys. If you have any questions, I'll be here right after to introduce you to my artworks. I'm also going to give a big shout out to my crew. So Rafael is right here. The other two could not join tonight, and Leah is also here. So Rafael has done those artworks over here. You can confirm. Ekayen has done those ones, and Cassius these ones. Again, we'll be here right after. There'll be also Sam talking to us about a board game that he has created, maybe to tackle climate change. So that's pretty much it for me. Now, thank you. You've seen the movie, so keep looking up and don't look down. There's always hope. Now, Frank, your turn. You wanna share your screen and you have a presentation.
Yep. I think you have to give me permission.
Oh,
There we go.
we have a few people online as well, so thank you for joining. Richard, you're an astronaut? It looks like
Analog astronaut in training, an artist,
Okay,
exploring the overview effect. We have a lot in common.
That's great. That's great. Well told. Well told. Okay, French, you want to put yourself in presentation mode, and we will listen to you now.
Okay. So bonjour, everybody, and happy Earth Day. I think we should call it Earth's Day. This should be the day for the Earth. And it's an important day. And it largely began, because of the Apollo missions and those beautiful pictures and videos that the Apollo astronauts shared with us back in the 60s. I do want to mention Rochelle Gribble is here, in fact. Rochelle is an amazing artist who lives in LA. And I hope you get to know her, Titi. She helped me put together this presentation, which was originally put together for the International Astronautical Congress in 2019. Also, my first cousin, Anne, is here with her husband, Rick. And she has been listening to me for over 70 years, talking about how we have to leave planet Earth. And we're going to have to expand humanity out into the universe. So we have some very special guests here. And I do want to talk about the overview effect and also how artists are drawn to it. I didn't really realize it in full till I started talking to Rochelle, and then I started doing research on it for this presentation. And as TT pointed out, the overview effect is an experience. It's also a theory about space flight, and it's an idea, and it's become a movement to bring the overview effect down to Earth so that this astronaut consciousness might permeate our current very narrow view of who we are and where we are. And there are two different versions of the overview effect. On my left, perhaps it's on your right, I'm not sure, we have the orbital view, and you'll notice that the portion of the Earth in the picture fills the whole screen. And you see not the entire Earth, but a part of it. And then on the other side, you have an Apollo lunar mission photograph, and that shows you the entire Earth. And we call it the difference between seeing the Earth in space and seeing it from space. The Apollo visuals really show you the Earth against the backdrop of the entire universe. And both of these are powerful. I mean, in both cases, you can see no borders or boundaries. You see the Earth as a whole system in which everything and everybody is really interconnected. And connectedness is something I'll come back to. Why are artists drawn to the overview effect? I don't know the answer. As Titi said, it's all about the right questions. I've come up with 3 answers that might work, 3 words: exploration, inspiration, and communication. You know, astronauts are explorers before they are anything else. They love going out into the unknown and they love to explore. And artists do too. Artists are drawn to the unknown, to trying to understand what's out there that we don't understand. Inspiration, space exploration, the overview effect, these inspire us. We start to think about what people can do when we work together, when we have this overview, when we understand. The astronauts say over and over again, we're all in this together. We are all connected. And then there's communication. Another thing astronauts say is, this is a really difficult thing for us to communicate. And back in the beginning, the Apollo astronauts said, we need artists to go to the moon. We need poets. We need painters. And we're finally getting there. And I believe that artists are drawn to this challenge. Oh, you want a communicator? That's me. I'll help you communicate the overview effect. Well, hold on a minute. Getting ahead of myself. Well, I'm kind of an artist. I'm a writer. I write fiction. I write nonfiction. The best known book I've written is The Overview Effect, now in its 4th edition. And believe me, the heroes of this story are the astronauts. I had enough sense to include all my interviews with them in this book. And I think, you know, this is one way of communicating the overview effect, which is interviews. And I've now interviewed over 40 astronauts. And that's a good way to communicate the overview effect, is in writing. Another way is through visuals, through video. So in this particular video, I was invited to NASA Johnson Space Center in 2019, and I interviewed 10 astronauts. 3 were on the space station at the time, and 7 I interviewed in a studio. And NASA took some of these interviews, turned them into an amazing series called Down to Earth. And so here's another way of communicating the overview effect, and that's just, let's let the astronauts speak for themselves. Here's one of my interviews with Tracy Caldwell Dyson.
So many things stand out because it also depends on the kind of time that you're spending up there. My first look at the Earth from that vantage point was on ascent in my wrist mirror, looking at the aft window behind me, knowing that I was the first one that had to get out of their seat and film our external tank falling away. That was my first job, aside from all the monitoring that I had to do. And so my view of it was very fleeting and very technical. It was background to the task that I had at hand, and that was pointing a camera at an external tank so that it could be analyzed. Then when we got into orbit, we had a very fast-paced mission, which all space shuttle missions were. You had 10 to 12 days of fast-paced work. And it was my commander, Scott Kelly, who carved out 90 minutes, an entire orbit on flight day 10. And he said to the rookies, the three of us, I want you guys all in that window, and I don't want you to move. And he already pre-coordinated it, got the lights turned off on the station so we could see everything in its grandeur. And that was the first moment that I had to really soak it in. And discovered a lot of things about my reaction to that view in that relatively short period of time. And then, of course, there was my space station flight where I lived up there for 6 months, and every night that I could, I was planted in that cupola, much like the picture shows, and gazing at it. And there wasn't a single regret I had about the time I spent there. In fact, it almost, I dare say, grieved me to think about how in the world am I gonna describe this? There's no words. There's no picture I could take to do it justice. There's no watercolors that I could put on paper to come close to the vividness, the ever-changing picture that I see staring at this planet. Everything from the colors to what changes the atmosphere goes through, depending on where the sun angle is and whether the moon's in the view or not, to just how fast we're going over the surface of it and the way shadows are changing. You could see the same landmass over a period of 2 weeks, and it looks completely different because of that. To then looking at the stars and the blackness, a black that nothing here on Earth ever can replicate. And then you look at the space station around you and you're like, this is amazing. And all the people who are a part of this structure that are either at their desks, creating the next great marvel, or they're sitting in mission control, controlling everything I see. And that's where it kind of hits you that you are but a small fraction of the human race that will ever get to see this the way it is right now. You don't go to space for yourself. You go to space for everybody back home.
So you could probably hear me. I don't know if you could. I'm in the background going, yeah. That was an amazing interview. I have to tell you, everybody who was in that studio was kind of on a contact high after listening to Tracy. She expresses it really, I think, quite beautifully, the overview effect. So that's another way of communicating it. And it's interesting. She said there's no art, there's no watercolor, there's nothing. Well, Nicole Stott, you saw her in a brief appearance in what Titi showed you, actually trained as an engineer. She has become a full-time artist. I believe she is the first person ever to paint a watercolor in orbit. And I believe the image shown here is something that she painted while she was in orbit, looking at the Earth. And it's pretty darn good. So again, this is astronauts becoming artists. More than one astronaut has become an artist. Why? They want to communicate it. They want to communicate this ineffable experience. Film and video is another way. Titi showed you some of this. I'm going to show you a little bit more with the sound. This video really jump-started the overview effect movement in 2012. We premiered it at Harvard. We have never advertised it. It's never been marketed. Over 8 million people have seen it. If you go on to Vimeo and look at the comments they make, you'll know this is a work of art. This is 19 minutes. If you don't want to read my book is 600 pages long. If you don't want to read that, watch overview. You can get it all in 19 minutes.
In 1968, Apollo 8 went to the moon. They didn't land, but they did circle the moon. And I was watching it on television, and at a certain point, one of the astronauts casually said, "We're going to turn the camera around and show you the Earth." And he did. And that was the first time I had ever seen the planet hanging in space like that. And it was profound.
I think that for me, like for many other people, it was quite a shock. I don't think any of us had any expectations about how it would give us such a different perspective. I think the focus had been, we're going to the stars, we're going to the other planets, and suddenly we look back at ourselves and it seems to imply a new kind of self-awareness.
One of the astronauts said, when we originally went to the moon, our total focus was on the moon. We weren't thinking about looking back at the Earth. But now that we've done it, that may well have been the most important reason we went.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry I had to cut that off, but if you go to Vimeo, you can see the film in 19 minutes. It's really quite good. And I mentioned the work of Rochelle, who's here today. Visual art. As you can see, Rochelle is not really trying to literally picture the planet. She's trying to picture this connectedness, this interconnection, this whole system that is the reality of life on Earth. And so this is actually called the overview effect, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rochelle. But once again, another artist drawn to the overview effect and looking at ways to communicate it in a different medium. And then don't forget music. Kenji Williams has a show called Bella Gaia, and he has said, I'm trying to recreate the overview effect. And he uses multiple forms of media. He himself is a classical musician, but there's a lot more than just Kenji to his show. Again, I can't show you all of it, but I'll give you a little taste here. Going beyond that immersive experience is virtual reality. And at this point, a group called Felix and Paul, located right in Montreal, had been working with NASA for quite a while to create a virtual reality experience of going onto the International Space Station and even going on a spacewalk. They've created a new experience called the Infinite, and I am told it is the closest thing you can do on Earth to the actual experience of the overview effect. Look out for it if it comes to Montreal, or if there's an opportunity to go there. I have heard people say amazing things about it, and I'm going to experience it as soon as I can. Once again, using the most advanced artistic tools we have, what's going on here? People are spending a lot of their time and energy recreating the overview effect, bringing it down to Earth in order to help our consciousness expand, even if we can't leave the planet directly. Another artist, a colleague of mine, Daniela DePaulis, has a project called Cogito, where she is measuring brain waves and translating them into sound while people use virtual reality to experience the overview effect. And this is actually a record of a person experiencing the overview effect in VR. Again, I can't do justice to this project, but it's bringing together artists, scientists, radio astronomers, all kinds of people working together on Cogito. It's a multidisciplinary effort. Finally, hey, we're in a new era. All of a sudden, people like you and me are really able to think about going and experiencing the overview effect. The Apollo astronauts kept saying, we need an artist, we need a poet, we can't communicate it. Cyan Proctor went on the Inspiration 4 flight not so long ago. I competed with her for her seat, and she won, and she deserved it. She had the best application. She's actually a scientist by training, but she's become an artist and a poet. And Cosmic Perspective is a group headed up by Mary Liz Bender, who's in this video, and they're documenting this new era. And here is their documentary, or their short trailer, showing the coverage of the Inspiration 4 flight. And if you think it's not emotional to watch something like this happen in real time, take a look.
Absolute honor to prepare you for this historic flight. Today, you are truly inspiring the world. We wish you a great mission, good luck, Godspeed, and enjoy the ride.
before before cosmic perspective came along, I don't think anybody saw a rocket launch as a work of art, but they have perfected filming these launches in slow motion and with music, and they really are artistic. So my goal in writing the overview effect was not to win the Pulitzer Prize for journalism, nor was it to win the Nobel Prize for literature. And I have been amazingly successful at winning no prizes whatsoever. But what I wanted to do was start a revolution in consciousness about who we are, where we are, what it means to be human, living on a planet that is a natural spaceship. We are astronauts. All of us are astronauts moving through the universe, exploring it, being inspired, I hope, by everything that we see and everything that we do every day. I have discovered, to my delight, artists are in the vanguard of this revolution. And artists are bringing it about in such a massive and ubiquitous and yet delightful way, non-threatening way. This revolution may actually occur, and we really won't even know that it occurred. We will just suddenly find ourselves in a new state of awareness as a species and as a planet. So I want to thank all the artists who've contributed to this movement. And if you're out there watching now and you'd like to be involved, welcome to the revolution. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Even to the crowds, like you're talking to me.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, guys, do you have any questions for Frank? You have 10 minutes with us, 10 more minutes. Be on the spot. So questions about the overview facts, or you reached that state of consciousness. Yes, in
So,
French or English is
if the experience up there is, without words or without description, how hard was it for him to find the words to describe his?
That's a really good question. I was telling somebody earlier today when I interviewed Alan Bean, the Apollo astronaut who actually became an artist when he returned. He said, Frank, if I had $1 for every journalist who said they were going to describe our experience, I would be a wealthy man, but nobody has succeeded. And I found it very hard. It was really difficult. I just decided I would do my best. And I also, I don't know if I was just guided by some higher power or what it was, but I decided to include the interviews I had done in the book. And that really helped a lot because in describing the experience, I could go back to what was there and people could read it for themselves. But the answer is it's very hard. And, I'm very interested in Zen Buddhism. My son is a Zen teacher, and Zen masters always say, Zen cannot be described in words. And then they all write books. So, I'm kind of like that Zen master. It can't be described, but hey, I'm a writer, so I try. That's the best answer I can give. It's very difficult.
If you weren't a writer, what would you be doing to describe the overview effect?
I couldn't hear that one, TT.
If you were to write her, how would you best describe the overview effect?
Yeah.
As a writer, how would I best describe the overview effect?
Yeah, if you were not a writer.
Oh, sorry. If you were not a writer, how would you describe the overview effect?
You mean, how would I try to communicate it if I weren't a writer? Is that the question?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I think our best opportunity, if I were to try to do it now, and I were to select the medium I would use, I think I would try virtual reality. Because I do believe that we can get pretty close to the real experience with VR. The one thing that's lacking is weightlessness. I'm convinced that weightlessness is a part of the experience. You know, Nicole talked about how the Earth glows. A lot of astronauts talk about bluer than blue, greener than green, really intense colors. And I'm wondering if that is partly because of some impact that weightlessness has on the brain. The brain is an organ, and we know that weightlessness affects every organ of the body. So I don't think we can get 100% with VR, but I think maybe 80%. So that's probably what I'd try my hand at.
Last question. Yes.
Hello, very practical one, very sorry. How many languages your book was translated to? And who is the right holder of the text?
Get that?
Again, I need you to repeat the question.
How many languages was your book written to, and do you have
Who is the right holder?
Who is the right holder
To
apply to?
Have the license.
I think you have someone in the industry here.
Who is the rights holder to what?
To the text. Yeah.
The text. The right holder of your text. So is it you or your publisher?
Is it you or your publisher? We're talking about your book.
Oh, I hold a copyright.
How many languages it's translated to?
You know, that's a big issue. I'm glad you brought that up. The overview effect, as far as I know, has only been translated into German, and that was the first edition. And I know the publisher is now negotiating to translate it into French. And I would really like for it to be translated into many, many more languages, because this is not an American experience. It's not a Canadian experience. It's a human experience. And I want to transmit this book as widely as possible. But, you know, even I'm the copyright holder, but the publisher has to work out the deal with other publishers to translate it. And so far, I would say we haven't been as successful as I'd like to be. If you can help us on that, that would be great.
So help you on that. Thank you very much for your questions, guys, and thank you, Frank, again.
Thank you.
Right. So we will resume this presentation with Leah's work. Frank, you can stay for a little while if you can.
I will stay. I have to charge my computer, so I'm going to move to a different place, but I'll stick around.
Okay, I think that's your slide, Leah. Actually, I would like you, Frank, to see it too. So.
Bonsoir à tous. Alors, j'espère que vous êtes tous assis, donc je vais pouvoir commencer ma présentation du leader. Je vais faire ça vraiment très rapidement. C'est uniquement ma diapositive que j'ai présentation des principes, mais bref, je vais faire assez rapidement. La présentation a été coupée en 3 parties. La première, c'est comment Thibaut est parti de là pour en arriver à l'espace et des questions. Mr. Wayne, and I'm sorry, thanks, Wayne, I'm going to French. It's going to be very short, so that's why. But I can translate anyways what I just said. Alors, c'est ça. Donc, Monsieur White vous expliquait donc l'effet sur plomb, puis moi je vais juste terminer sur l'effet sur plomb, puis mes photos essentiellement, mais je vais les laisser très rapidement. Les photos sont exposées juste ici, et c'est un travail qu'on a fait avec Thibaut. L'idée en fait de travailler sur le concept d'astronaute puis d'effet sur plomb, ça avait été, en fait, c'est vraiment le concept d'astronaute et d'espace sans dernier. Il y a Thibaut dans la réflexion ici. Déjà, c'est la première fois que les photos sont exposées, puis qu'elles sont dans aussi grand format, c'est déjà tout pour moi. Mais surtout, l'idée de base, en fait, c'était d'avoir une série de photos qui était un petit peu scénarisée. Et l'idée de départ, c'était d'avoir un astronaute, une planète inconnue, qui venait sur Terre, plus particulièrement à Montréal, qui suivait un parcours, qui découvrait ce qu'elle allait découvrir, et notamment apporter des enjeux climatiques, etc. Avec Thibaut, on a remasterisé un petit peu ce scénario, puis finalement, c'est un astronaute qui est parti dans l'espace, qui revient sur Terre et qui redécouvre Montréal. Donc, c'est un chemin en fait, qu'on a parcouru. Et vous pouvez voir là, on a vraiment marché sous les autoroutes, on allait dans des dépanneurs, on s'est fait chasser. Mais la balade s'est arrêtée au parc Frédéric Lac, et c'est un parc où il y a beaucoup de. En fait, ce sont des. Déjà, c'est un parc écologique, et qui parle en fait de ça, puis c'est des tests environnementaux, etc. Et ces ça servent à étudier justement le niveau de méthane, je pense, dans le sol, avec l'évacuation des eaux, etc. C'est ça qui surveille. C'est un petit peu imprécis, ça peut être pas super. Mais voilà, donc, déjà, on a un super, c'était actif quand même, d'un astronaute qui revient de l'espace et redécouvre Montréal. Puis, ce qui est intéressant, c'est que ça donne et donc, les petites planètes, finalement, la planète de l'espace. Ce qui est intéressant aussi, c'est que là, c'est qu'on voit la Terre vue dans le casque, etc. Alors, c'est un peu l'idée qui est pareil avec les avions, etc. C'est un peu notre démarche, donc c'est ce qu'on a réussi à faire la semaine passée. Oui. Alors, voilà. Rapidement sur moi, ça fait très longtemps que je suis plutôt. Pendant longtemps, ça fait un amateur, puis parce que ça me garder des souvenirs. Je vais avec les années, mais avec un an, puis je suis vraiment pas de plus en plus sur déjà ce thème-là. Et c'est ce soir. Alors, merci. Je fais la représentation, mais merci d'être venu. Merci à tout le monde. Il y a vraiment beaucoup de personnes qui nous ont aidés, donc merci beaucoup pour ça. Et puis on va rester autour des questions à nous poser. Je ne vais pas vous prendre en otage, mais merci encore.
Je vais quand même souligner, Frank, my turn to speak French, easier. On va quand même souligner le fait qu'on est présentement dans la galerie de 1040. La galerie de 1040, ça fait maintenant 30 ans cette semaine qu'elle existe. Donc, cette exposition est en fait aussi pour célébrer les 30 ans de cette galerie qui se réinvente, qui reprend un petit coup de jeune. Et donc, pour les artistes dans la salle qui nous écoutent, si vous avez envie d'exposer comme moi ici, comme Léa et moi ici, n'hésitez pas en fait à parler à François qui est le propriétaire. Voilà, c'est une super belle exposition. On a fait aussi. Ouais, c'est ça. Et on a fait une murale aussi juste en arrière là, comme si vous êtes curieux, faites juste le tour du bloc. Vous allez voir qu'il y a donc, le collectif a fait une murale également pour les 30 ans. C'est une main qui passe un pinceau à l'autre main, c'est un symbole. Voilà, donc François, ça fait ça de ses parents, c'est une génération. Super, il y a aussi Thierry qui va venir mixer après. Donc à partir de la fin de la présentation, on sera heureux d'avoir. Et puis merci aux petites mains qui nous ont permis de rendre ça possible. Again, thank you very much, Frank. Your input was valuable as always, and I will now pass it on to our last speaker, Sam, who created the board game solution. So we spoke about problems and how to think about it with art. Now we'll have the solutions to climate change with Sam. We'll give you a quick rundown of his game. And by the way, so we'll set a couple of tables here for you to play it. Of course, feel free to just come and chat with the creator. What did I forget? Something? Yeah, so just like I'll hang around after to speak with you guys. So thank you very much for coming. Much appreciated on a Friday. We could have gone to the park and drink a beer, but it is very, very appreciated. Thank you very much.
All right, let's move. Okay, can everyone hear me? Yeah. Amazing. All right, so I'd love to talk to you guys about using another form of art, making games and gamification as a starting point for climate impact. And so, like Timo said, I'll be talking primarily about creating solutions. And before, I guess rather than just like talking to you guys about the game, I'll start with a short video to just give you guys a sense of what's going on and how people interact.
Are we all good? This is big.
One by one? Yeah, consensus.
Okay.
From the lowest to the lowest. Let's see.
Oh, what?
Oh,
that's so wrong.
Well, that's so wrong.
Maybe we have it in backwards order.
I
wouldn't have thought that.
I
Yeah.
would not have.
This is
like number two. This was two.
Yeah.
I think it's like the very simple, obvious ones are the highest.
Yeah.
That's wild.
All right, so there you can see a bunch of people who have no relation to climate whatsoever. And actually, well, one of them works in climate. The other people are musicians, artists, and they're having a conversation about climate change, and they're able to have fun. And so there's really three, I guess, design elements that I have on the game, and they're the subtype. Discover, prioritize, and take action. So I'll take you guys really quickly through those three things. So the first one is discover. And so the goal there is to get people to discover what products and climate solutions. And so when most people think about what is a climate solution, people think solar panels or electric cars, and these are really, really important solutions. They're in the game. But the point is that there's so much more out there. And I really want to celebrate some of these more creative solutions, unique solutions that people tend to think about. So the second aspect is prioritizing, and that's really the goal here is to get people to think critically and engage in solutions. And so I don't know if anyone here has played the game Terraforming Mars. Yep. And so amazing game, and you're actually trying to cause climate change on Mars and to make it happen. And they have some really creative cards. Show cat or technology. And I love flipping through cards so much, but when I got to playing, I was kind of disappointed because I realized that the magic of the cards was not necessarily to it. So all that mattered to the gameplay was, oh, this card says +1 this, -3 this. And so really with solutions, I want to take the opposite track and to kind of make sure if you're going to play one of these magic plan solutions, you're going to need to really actively figure that. And so here you can see with 3 different versions of the prototype from paper printout prototype to the final prototype over here. And really, so some of my other intentions behind designing were to make it feel as realistic as possible. So for example, matching up luck with 2 luck in the real world. And I also wanted people to feel intense, feel under pressure, but also feel hopeful and empowered and like they can solve things together. And so the final element here is taking action. And that's where I really think that games can be amazing to be beyond just the game and to move that into the real world. And so here's the back of one of the solution cards. And you can see on it, there's a QR code. And if you scan the QR code, you go to a website like this. And so you can learn more, maybe you want to dive into the solution, what are some assumptions behind it. But there's also the take action. And the idea is that after playing the game, you can pick your favorite solution and turn it into a real world project. And obviously, this isn't like a requirement to play the game, that's for those who are interested. And really, the reason for this is I feel like when most people think about what can I do about climate change, there's really 2 spheres that people think about, which is one, personal actions, fly less, and then on the other end of the spectrum is the giant actions that many corporations or wind farms, policy change. And a lot of what I'm trying to do is that I think there's a huge sphere of action in the middle where a single person or a group can have a huge amount of impact well beyond just themselves. And I'll give you an example of that in a second. So we tested the game with over 600 people, and about half of those were just regular average people with a particular interest in climate, and the other half were in the education space. So we tested with elementary schools, middle schools, high school, bachelor, master's, PhD, and here is a clip of we sent the game to a school, an elementary school in Palm Beach, Florida. And they were a bit more relaxed with the COVID restrictions. And so this is a really short clip of what they did after playing the game.
Meanwhile, at Rosarian Academy, 6th graders are carefully weighing the wasted food after the daily lunch break to see if they can reach a 30% reduction over the next 3 weeks.
The school was even so inspired by the students presenting to administration their idea and why they want to do it and why it's important, that the leadership decided to bring back a garden that the school previously had and they got rid of in order to build something else. I'm a first-year teacher, I don't know. And so we got the garden, and the garden is going to be built, and we're going to have little composting pods in the garden. So the game inspired the students, who then inspired the administration to make a bigger impact right here at school. So just so thankful that we're able to have the solutions game. And it really is a great learning tool for my students, even as a confident climate communicator. This really helped me in my classroom, and it helped inspire the next generation to act on behalf of our planet, which is really important.
And so they had 2 6th grade classes do this, and they managed to decrease their food waste by 3 to 10 kilograms a day. And this is really where I think games in general can act as a starting point for not just climate action, but there's other things we can develop as well for action in different ways. So I'll leave you guys with a quote from the World Economic Forum. And they say, if parents and educational systems leverage learning through play, we could all be more prepared for the future. So that is everything there. Thank you very much. I think
Comme je vous ai dit, on va mettre une coupe de table ici. Pour ceux qui veulent jouer, ça va être plutôt dans cette partie-là. Pour ceux qui veulent jaser, cette part-là, pour la faire. J'ai pas mentionné Enora ici. Eno and Stitch, c'est mon artiste, je vous ai dit qu'il y a une centaine de personnes derrière qui a fait cette magnifique présentation de drapeau réinterprété que je trouve Léa aussi d'ailleurs sur notre costume d'astronaute. On pourra en parler. Merci à tous. Vous pouvez rester, il y aura un petit peu de musique, comme je disais. Donc, c'est ça. Bonne soirée. Merci. Frank, we'll be in touch soon. We'll be in touch soon, Frank. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.